It is a wide accepted truth that Vincent Kennedy McMahon is a genius that knows his business inside and out. The man turned professional wrestling from a territorial sideshow into a worldwide phenomenon and turned himself into a billionaire in the process. He's made a lot of excellent decisions in WWE to get the business to where it is today, but as the saying goes, you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs. Vince and his creative team have often made some not so excellent decisions with regards to storylines over the years, by which I mean he's let some really weird stuff get on television. In fact, there's been so many I can't list them all in one video. So in today's video we'll look at 5 wacky storylines that had us scratching our heads. I intend to make more of these kinds of videos, make this a regular series, because let's be honest, Vince and Co have done a lot of weird stuff over the years, and it would take me forever. So we'll do more of these videos. So if you've got any ideas for storylines you'd like me to cover in the future, then feel free to let me know. Mae Young was revered in the wrestling industry as being one of the earliest pioneers of women's grappling, with her first match being in 1940 at the age of just 18 years old. To put that into perspective, the Second World War would still be raging on for another 5 years at the time of her ring debut. She would go on to win 3 prestigious National Wrestling Alliance championships in her illustrious career, and later went on to influence many female wrestlers, both as a trainer and as an inspiration. Cut to late 90s WWE. Perhaps in other sports, an ageing legend like Mae Young would return as a brand ambassador, or a Hall of Fame entrant, or just a legend generally, Anything would have been better than what actually happened in 1999. Mae and her best friend, the fabulous Moolah, returned to WWE in 1999 as a comedy tag team act, and things got way too weird for a pair of elderly women. Enter Mark Henry, a former world's strongest man and legitimate tough guy. He was hired by WWE in 1996 on a huge $10 million contract and was expected to be the company's next hot prospect and main eventer going into the new millennium. However, by 1999, McMahon had lost faith in the big man after a number of disappointing in-ring performances and a perceived lack of charisma. As McMahon was stuck with the big guy, he decided to humiliate him instead. At the time, TV ratings and pay-per-view buys were at an all-time high thanks to the likes of The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It seemed that Vince genuinely thought he could do no wrong. And that's why he concocted a storyline in which Big Mark Henry fell head over heels in love with a woman twice his age, Mae Young. The storyline ran for weeks, with the 76-year-old eventually revealing she was pregnant with Mark Henry's child. Just picture that for a second, a 76-year-old pregnant. Unbelievable. What's more unbelievable is that when she eventually gave birth, she gave birth to a hand. To this day, I have no idea what they were thinking with this storyline. It was all forgotten within weeks, to be honest, and never mentioned again. That is until the 1000th episode of Raw many years later, when Mae Young returned to our screens and brought her now adult son along with her. In 2020, it's great to be able to say, as a society, we're finally starting to understand mental illness and are breaking down the stigma for those who are suffering. However, 2005 was a very different time, especially for WWE. As internet bandwidth started increasing in a big way, the internet was really starting to take off as a space for creativity. YouTube was launched in 2005, providing a platform for content creators to really flex their creativity, and the web started to become a viable alternative to the television for entertainment. WWE quickly realised this and latched on to this new way of thinking, realising the possibility of reaching their worldwide fan base on a weekly basis without the need for a television network via their own website, WWE.com. Now, Tim White was a long-standing referee in the wrestling business. His tenure dated all the way back to 1985, where he worked with Andre the Giant. In 1993, White became a full-time WWE referee, where he became one of Vince's most trusted employees. By 1998, Tim was refereeing main event bouts, including the legendary Hell in a Cell match between Mankind and The Undertaker. Fast forward to 2005, and the Attitude Era was well and truly finished, and WWE were reaching for some fresh ideas. So why not take the most competent referee in the business and have him attempt and fail suicide every week for 14 weeks? At least it'll be funny, right? It really wasn't. In the storyline, WWE interviewer Josh Matthews travelled to White's bar in Rhode Island to interview his friend. White claimed to have become despondent after witnessing the Hell in a Cell match and wanted to end his life. Then, live on WWE.com, Tim White pulled out a shotgun and apparently shot himself in the head. Luckily for the viewers, it was an unsuccessful attempt and Tim shot himself in the foot instead. From then on, every week, our favourite referee unsuccessfully attempted suicide on multiple occasions in varying different ways. Then one afternoon, White invited interviewer Josh back to a party at his bar. When Josh arrived at the bar, Tim murdered him. Wrestling fans worldwide will recognise the surname Guerrero instantly. The late, great Eddie Guerrero made waves in the wrestling world from 1995 until his untimely death in 2005 as one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time. A rare talent that could make people love or hate him in equal measure, Eddie forged a glittering career in the space of a decade, encompassing championship reigns across multiple promotions, including a reign with the WWE's championship belt. His brother, Hector Guerrero, was not so lucky. 13 years the senior of Eddie, but just as talented, Hector initially wrestled in the National Wrestling Alliance under the most appallingly 80s name ever, Lasertron. Nonetheless, things started to look up towards the end of the decade when brother Guerrero won the NWA Junior Heavyweight Championship and the AWA World Tag Team title. Surely a contract with the illustrious WWE would set Hector on a course for superstardom. A giant egg appeared on the WWE's flagship television programmes throughout 1990. Yes, a giant egg. Vince McMahon was a commentator at the time, and he and his fellow announcers feigned curiosity and even a little excitement every time it was wheeled out. The fans did not match their interest in the giant papier-mâché oven. Now, the Survivor Series was, and still is, a major yearly event for WWE, an event that usually features big multi-superstar tag team matches and always occurs around Thanksgiving. And in 1990, the added bonus of a giant egg finally hatching was on the card. The anticipation from the fans was minimal at best. Out of the giant egg burst Hector Guerrero dressed in a giant turkey costume. One of the hottest prospects at the time, Hector had been hired by Vince McMahon and then forced to sit in a giant egg all night covered in feathers. A real Thanksgiving to remember for poor Hector. A handful of appearances later, the turkey was dropped from WWE and pretty much forgotten, and Guerrero was given the chop too. Who can forget 2007? Vince sent his company into full soap opera mode when he decided to blow himself up. Throughout the months prior, McMahon's on-screen character had started to show signs of depression, almost on the verge of a breakdown. He had lost a feud with Donald Trump of all people that resulted in him having to have his head shaved. He had lost an ill-gotten championship belt to one of his arch-enemies, and to top it all off, his employees almost universally hated his guts and they weren't scared to tell him during self-appointed Vince McMahon Appreciation Night. But on this night, things were about to get a whole lot worse for Vinnie Mac. He despondently walked to his limousine, past his own hate-filled employees, before taking one look back at the company that had betrayed him. Vince climbed into the back seat of the limousine, then one camera cut later, the car exploded. Incredibly, a portion of the audience actually thought this was a real-life event. Even the WWE stock price fell due to the very obvious wrestling storyline. Now, to be fair to WWE, they did stick to the story. The flag on WWE HQ was lowered to half-mast, and Vince was nowhere to be seen for the next week. Flowers were left at McMahon's door as confused fans raided the message boards for answers. More incredibly, WWE devoted their next two television shows to the memory of Mr. McMahon, complete with teary-eyed tributes to the apparent former chairman and a 10-bell salute. Now, we never find out where this storyline was supposed to go because the Chris Benoit incident happened, and that was the end of that. They just dropped it. Vince came back to TV and nobody mentioned the situation. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again, the late 90s and early 2000s were a very wild time in WWE, even by their own standards. The place was overrun by hoes and pimps, vampires and dead men, blue men and inappropriately pierced men, and for the purposes of our next storyline, a male porn star and a group of racially stereotyped Japanese lads. Val Venis was that porn star, coming to the ring to what was basically sex music, and wrapped in a towel, he took what was basically Rick Rude's ladies man gimmick from 10 years earlier and gave it a very turn of the century spin. When he debuted with WWE, he was shown cavorting on adult film sets with the likes of real-life adult star Jenna Jameson, and when it was time to make his in-ring debut, he took no time getting to know the ladies of the locker room. Unfortunately for Val, one such encounter nearly left him unable to perform his day job. The team of stereotypical Japanese lads were known as Kaien's High and featured Mrs. Yamaguchi-san, wife of Yamaguchi-san. Suffice to say, when Yamaguchi-san discovered an affair between his wife and WWE's resident porn star, he was not best pleased and vowed revenge. The revenge turned out to be a backstage ambush where Venis was stripped naked and tied up, with the threat of his manhood being chopped off by a sword. However, in a stroke of luck, it was revealed the following week that Val had been overcome by, in his words, a little shrinkage. So there you have it, 5 weird and wacky WWE storylines. As I said earlier, there will be a sequel to this video with 5 more coming soon, so if you'd like to suggest any, then please do let me know.